Hello, and welcome to another interactive session on a live webinar series, Moneyfy Mantra, where we speak with industry experts on various personal finance topics to help educate our viewers on managing their personal finance more efficiently and empowering them to build and grow their wealth. Hi, my name is Harsh, and I'll be hosting the session for today. So म्यूचुअल फंड सही है, आपने ये सबने सुना होगा, लेकिन आज हम ये जानने की कोशिश करेंगे कि म्यूचुअल फंड्स ही क्यों सही है आपकी बचत और इन्वेस्टमेंट्स के लिए। हम सब चाहते हैं कि हमारे जितने भी सपने हैं, जैसे घर खरीदना, गाड़ी खरीदना, कोई इंटरनेशनल ट्रिप पे जाना, अपने बच्चों के सफल भविष्य के लिए हमें उनकी अच्छी से अच्छी कॉलेज में एडमिशन करवाना, एंड आखिर में अपने रिटायरमेंट के बाद भी कभी कभी भी हमें पैसों की कमी ना आए। हमारा आज का टॉपिक इसी से जुड़ा है, which is achieving your financial goals through mutual funds. And to cover this topic, we have Mr. Nirbhay Morzaria from Axis Mutual Funds. Nirbhay, a very warm welcome to Moneyfy Mantra.
Thank you so much, Harsh. And I think very rightly put. I think I definitely agree to whatever you said. Mutual fund sahi hai. Of course, we've been seeing the ads right throughout the IPL season, right, where Sachin Tendulkar is constantly in your ears and telling you about the importance of mutual fund investing. So through this next, half an hour, I will try and put some perspective with our, audience today. I will try and educate on the basics of mutual funds and why saving plus investment is the right combination to achieving your financial goals. So I just have a small presentation also for our viewers. Just if you can confirm if you can see screen, then I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, so before we go ahead, I'll just take 1 more minute. So before we jump on our topic, let me give some details of our, Moneyfy by Tata Capital. So
Yeah.
it's a mobile app which offers complete suite of products 100% digitally, for everyone's personal finance needs. Like one can invest in mutual funds, start an SIP. We have also got small cases. If you want to open a fixed deposit, open a retirement account, through an NPS, or apply for loans and insurance. So we have everything at one place. Anyone who wants to try explore our Moneyfy app can do so by searching Moneyfy on Play Store, or we have also given the link in the description below. I would request all our viewers to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get regular updates on our upcoming Moneyfy Mantra sessions. I would also request our viewers to put their comments and questions on the chat window. So Nirbhay will help answer all the questions towards the end of this session. All right, Nirbhay, over to you.
Thank you so much, Harsh. And I think your description on the app is very relevant today, because I think everything is digital, right? Be it shopping for yourself, ordering food for yourself, or even planning your investments. I think digital is going to be the next big thing, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful job in making life easier in terms of transacting. So I think keep up the good work and hope for better success in the future. So let's dive into the session. So the topic, like Harsh already mentioned, is achieving your financial goals through mutual funds. Financial goals, everybody has them. You have them, I have them. Even the people who you see in day-to-day life, irrespective of the income strata, everybody has goals, right? For some, you classify them as you put down a particular name to it. For everybody else, it might just be something that they think of achieving in life. So let's get directly to the presentation. Why did why did you invest, or why should one invest? The answer is very simple. Money grows money. So unless and until you don't put your money which you earn through different means to good use, you will never see that money multiply. So that is the first and foremost reason why you should invest. And via that exercise, what you end up achieving is actually a bigger bounty for yourself, which helps you achieve all your goals, financial, non-financial, there is a certain amount of lifestyle which you and I are used to. So in order to achieve that, I think it is very important that one plans to invest and invest in a way which is very thought through, is very professional in nature, because it's very important to give your money to the right expert, irrespective of your asset class, be it equity, fixed income, gold, real estate. You always want somebody who has the relevant experience, who has the relevant expertise to guide you towards the investment process. And like I said earlier also, we have our financial goals, we have our dreams. Some dreams, some goals are short term in nature, and for that, of course, you require a lot of money. Some require some money, but for most of your financial goals, which are typically longer term in nature, the kind of money that you need is pretty substantial. So hence, in order to get to those financial goals, there is a platform which is available, which is called mutual funds. Depending on your risk appetite, depending on your time horizon, depending on various other factors, you can pick and choose how do you want to invest, right? So on the screen, what you see is a combination of short term as well as long term goals. Something like buying a car, or doing a world trip, or planning a international trip, or for that matter even a domestic trip. These are goals which are 2 to 3 years or 5 years max away. But for something like buying a house, something like your children's higher education, their marriage, and for that matter your retirement also, many people obviously don't pay a lot of heed to the fact that planning your retirement is also a very important process. Because once you stop earning, post retirement, you of course need money to sustain your day to day life. And how will that happen? That will happen only if you invest your money well during the time when you are earning, in order to become to achieve financial freedom. So the end goal of this entire exercise, by the time we finish the presentation, you should have an idea of feeling a sense of financial empowerment. You should have a feeling of the fact that you need to invest your money in the right asset class, with the right money manager, in order to achieve all this which is present on screen. One thing which people kind of forget is that the value of money keeps decreasing, right? So if you take, for example, as simple as a plate of idli, right? Or even if you have to take, most of Mumbaikars will associate with is the cost of vada pav, right? Something that we've grown up eating all our lives. The cost of that vada pav that we eat today was definitely not the same, say 10 years back, 15 years back, or 20 years back. Why is that? That is because there is a certain amount of inflation which we forget to factor in. Every year, the price of that item that you're buying, right? Be it as simple as buying a vada pav, or sponsoring your child's education, or sponsoring your child's marriage. Every year that cost just keeps on increasing, because everything starts getting expensive because of the inflation factor. So what you see on screen is today, say for example, if you want your child to take up an MBA program in a domestic institute, the cost for which is today say 10 lakhs. But after 10 lakhs, after 10 years, the cost is not going to be the same, because the value of money is ultimately depreciating. What I mean by that in simple words is, आज का जो 10 रुपया है, वो कल का 10 रुपया नहीं रहेगा. That will, depending on the level of inflation, become 6 rupees, 7 rupees, or even 5 rupees. जितना ज्यादा इन्फ्लेशन होगा, उतने आपका पैसे का दाम कम होता जाएगा, right? So how do you cover yourself? You basically invest in assets which are going to be yielding much higher than the cost of inflation. So that is how you will not only beat inflation, but will also achieve your life goals. Like I said right at the beginning, one thing which people completely overlook is the fact that what will happen once you retire. Nobody thinks so far out, because हमें लगता है कि रिटायरमेंट अभी भी, अगर आज हम 30 साल के हैं तो 30 साल बाद का किसने देखा है. But what happens if you ultimately live out those 30 years, right? अगर आपको 60 के बाद भी सपोज और 20 साल जीना है, तो आपको वो 20 साल अपना लाइफस्टाइल फंड करना है. तभी आपके पास रेगुलर इनकम नहीं होगी, बिकॉज आपके पास या तो सैलरी इनकम नहीं है, या तो बिजनेस इनकम नहीं है. तो ऐसे में आप क्या करोगे? You will have to depend on the corpus which you created throughout your working life. So retirement planning is one thing which I think is the least important factor which people plan for. There is a survey also which I think was done by one of the insurance companies, which says that hardly 5% of people in India plan for their retirement. So out of every 100, only 5 people are planning their retirement, which is terribly low, because जब तक आप 60 इयर्स के हो जाओगे और अगर आप जी गए तो पैसे तो लगेंगे जीने के लिए, तो तभी आप क्या करोगे, राइट? एंड दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम द कॉस्ट ऑफ मनी, लाइक वी स्पोक ऑन द प्रीवियस स्लाइड, इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी द सेम. तो अगर आज की तारीख में 30,000 रुपए चाहिए घर चलाने के लिए, 30 साल बाद वो वैल्यू काफी बड़ी होगी. और and hence you need to plan very well in order to achieve those remaining goals. Again, financial goals, like we spoke about, long term and short term, this is something that we've already spoken about, right? Child's education, child's marriage, world trip, planning for your retirement. What is interesting is the center of the picture, right? यहाँ पे आपको दिख रहा है कि एक बंदा चल रहा है और वो थोड़ा दबा हुआ है. That is because of the financial burden he carries if he doesn't plan well. So the idea of this slide is, if you want to achieve all those goals which are there, right, be it your child's education, your retirement, doing a world trip, planning your children's marriage, what you need to do is plan well, invest well, and ultimately enjoy the benefits over a long period of time. How do you achieve these goals, right? ये बहुत ही important slide है, क्योंकि I think बहुत सारे दर्शकों को या तो हमें ये सिखाया नहीं जाता कि सेविंग्स और इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में बहुत बड़ा अंतर है. हमें लगता है कि अगर हम आज से हमारी सैलरी अगर 10,000 रुपीज है, उसमें से हम 3,000 रुपीज सेव करते हैं, दैट इज नॉट द सेम एज इन्वेस्टमेंट्स. कीपिंग असाइड मनी और जस्ट कीपिंग असाइड सर्टन मनी फ्रॉम योर मंथली पेचेक इज नॉट कॉल्ड or will not get you to your goals. What will get you is investing that money. So like you see the picture on the left, right? Savings का जो आपको picture दिख रहा है उसमें एक 500 का note है, which the guy thinks that he's saving, but actually over a period of time that 500 is not going to be worth 500. So what he needs to do is move to the right bucket. उसको right वाले picture की तरफ जाना है जहाँ पे वो दिखा रहा है कि वो अपने 500 रुपीज अच्छे तरीके से इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है, जो अल्टीमेटली जाके एक बड़ा पेड़ पौधा में कन्वर्ट हो रहा है, which is basically a money plant. So that is a very crucial difference which we need to realize, that savings is not equal to investment. Savings is just keeping aside money. That will not help you achieve your financial goals. What will help you achieve your financial goals is investing that money in the right source. राइट? सो अगर हम इन्वेस्टमेंट की बात कर ही रहे हैं तो ऑफ कोर्स वी हैव अ गैमेट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स व्हिच आर अवेलेबल विद अस. फिक्स डिपॉजिट इंडिया में काफी फेमस है, काफी चर्चित है. आपके पेरेंट्स या तो फिर आपके ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स, those are typically the kind of people who have stuck to that asset class, which is bank fixed deposit, or for that matter government post office deposits, right? So that is something which everybody knows about. Then there is PPF, right, which helps you save aside certain money, and you get a tax-free percentage on that. Real estate and gold are your non-financial assets, right? Those are investments which are kind of illiquid in nature, right? Gold, of course, India is known for having one of the highest reserves of gold. And I'm sure most of us on call will also know how much gold our parents have kept investing in, because it kind of gives you a safety measure, right? It kind of gives you a safety net. But ये जानना बहुत जरूरी है that gold over a period of time, while it appreciates in value, it doesn't appreciate to beat inflation. अगर आपने जो सोना खरीदा था से 20 साल पहले, अगर उसकी वैल्यू 20,000 रुपीज थी, शायद आज उसकी वैल्यू 40,000 है, but it might not be enough to cover the cost of inflation. So many times when you invest, you actually forget that you have to beat inflation also, right? And real estate, of course, our country is very prevalent, because हमको ये सिखाया जाता है बचपन से कि जब भी पैसे कमाना शुरू करो, जब भी जॉब लग जाए, जब भी बिजनेस में बरकत हो जाए, सबसे पहले जाके रियल एस्टेट ले लो, बिकॉज दैट इज अ काइंड ऑफ अ सेफ्टी नेट which you should have over here. सर के ऊपर छत होना जरूरी है, of course that is what we've been taught. But as you move towards point 5 and 6, right, equity and mutual funds, those are your financial assets, so to say, right? That is of course the new age way of investing. Mutual funds, of course, enough has been said and done. There are advertisements, there are campaigns. SEBI has done a lot in order to ensure that the industry grows deeper and wider. We'll come to what, of course, this session is about mutual funds. So, of course, from the slides going ahead, we'll talk about what mutual funds are, how do they work, what are the different kinds of mutual funds, right? Equity investing, which means direct stock investing, that is another avenue which everybody has to invest. But यहाँ पे सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ये होता है कि most of the time we retail investors don't get the timing right. So unless and until you're investing for a very long period of time, 5 साल, 10 साल या 15 साल, I think equity में expertise होना काफी जरूरी है, right? या तो you stick to something which is really large cap in nature, something like say an index fund which helps you to take exposure to the best companies in India. And the last is insurance. While that is not that does not yield you any result, but very important to have insurance also in your investment portfolio, because you never know when life takes a U-turn, like they say. So insurance hona काफी जरूरी है लाइफ में. Again, penetration rate in India is very low, because people think that मैंने इंश्योरेंस खरीद तो लिया, बट उसके सामने मेरा कोई फायदा नहीं हो रहा. बट आपका that is not supposed to give you any monetary benefit immediately. इंश्योरेंस तभी आएगा पिक्चर में जब आपको कुछ हो जाता है, so that your family doesn't get stuck. So insurance ultimately is very important from an investment point of view also, right? So ये सारे एसेट क्लासेस जो हमने डिस्कस किए प्रीवियस स्लाइड में, राइट, उनके टेंटेटिव रिटर्न्स दिखाए गए हैं. ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज नॉट अ गारंटी ऑफ हाउ मच मनी यू विल मेक, बट दिस इज basically giving you an indication of how much these asset classes have delivered over the past period of time. So अगर आप देखोगे तो fixed deposits, right, and PPF kind of similar in nature, because ultimately they are fixed income or debt instruments. Difference in rate is because the second one, which is PPF, is backed by the government, and in order to incentivize people to save more money via PPF, the rate of return is a bit higher, because the government wants to incentivize investors. Again, real estate as an asset class is fairly not done too much. It's barely kept up with the cost of inflation over a period of time. So that is for the past 10 years. And real estate के साथ ये चक्कर है कि the prices always move in cycles, right? It depends on how the demand and supply cycle is, and a lot of other factors which of course we'll not get into right now. But real estate typically is an asset class, moves in cycles, and from an investment point of view it doesn't make too much sense, because it is very illiquid in nature. So अगर आपको कोई real estate transaction करना हो तो सबसे पहले buyer ढूंढना, फिर उसके बाद price agree करना, फिर registration, transferring the proceeds and all that. So it's a massive exercise. So real estate is not very not very friendly in terms of how it completely works. So and hence of course returns have also not been very great. And the next two are equity and mutual funds. Equity, of course, this is the value be calculated based on Nifty over the past 20-25 years. It's done very well, because India as an economy is still growing. There is a lot of opportunity which exists in the Indian market for everybody to invest. So equities as an asset class has done fairly well. So this equity is the direct equity stock investing that we are talking about. Then the next is mutual fund. Why do you see such a wide range? Is because इसमें debt mutual funds भी considered है और equity mutual funds भी considered है. So that is why you see the range from 8 to 14%, right? So if you take purely your equity mutual funds, आपका return करीबन 12 से 14% के बीच बैठेगा. और अगर आप debt इन्वेस्टमेंट देखते हो तो करीबन 8 से 9% बैठेगा, राइट? सो it is still better than the fixed deposits that give you 5-6% kind of return. And like I spoke about gold, right? Gold has given about 8-9% over the past 10 years. Just a replica of the previous slide, but what is done in this slide is the inflation effect, right? लोग भूल जाते हैं that absolute return के बाद आपको inflation भी bear करना पड़ता है. So what is done here is, over the past 10 years, the inflation average has been about 7%, which means सालाना, महंगाई 7% से बढ़ रही है, right? So in this case, अगर आप देखोगे जो fixed deposits थे, जो previous slide में मैंने बताया, जो 5 to 7 और 6 to 7% return देते हैं, अगर मैं inflation factor in करूँ, तो actually मैंने पैसा गवाया है, राइट? अगर 100 रुपए का दाम अगर फिक्स डिपॉजिट से 107 रुपए आता है, बट इन्फ्लेशन ही 7% है, सो आई हैव एक्चुअली नॉट मेड एनी मनी, आई हैव लॉस्ट मनी देयर, बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स यू टेक इनटू अकाउंट the opportunity cost as well. So similarly for other asset classes, like you see, right, PPF is just about barely managed to give you positive returns. So barring equity and mutual funds, there is not too much comfort when it comes to creating wealth, because अगर financial goals achieve करना है तो inflation को तो definitely beat करना होगा, because आपकी value of money grow ही नहीं होगी अगर आप inflation को beat नहीं कर पाओगे तो. So अगर आप 10 साल बाद say for example flat return बनाते हो, right, inflation ही आपके पैसे को खा जाएगा, तो आपके पास जो पैसा बचेगा, right, that will not be able to buy you something that you want after 10 years. Be it as simple as buying a vada pav on the street or sponsoring your child's education. The cost of money factor is very important to understand here, right? Previous slide में आपने देखा होगा डायरेक्ट इक्विटी इन्वेस्टिंग, रिटर्न्स तो काफी तगड़े थे, जोरदार थे, काफी टेम्पटेशन होता है for us to directly invest in stock market, but challenges है डायरेक्ट इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट में, राइट? दैट इज व्हाट यू कैन सी ऑन स्क्रीन. सबसे पहले तो पैसे चाहिए इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए, एक लमसम कैपिटल चाहिए जिसके बिना आप एक अपना पोर्टफोलियो क्रिएट नहीं कर सकते. दूसरी बात आपको चाहिए होता है इंफॉर्मेशन. सपोज फॉर एग्जांपल हाइपोथेटिकली, एंड दिस इज जस्ट फॉर इलस्ट्रेशन पर्पस, अगर आपको HDFC बैंक में इन्वेस्ट करना हो, राइट, अगर आप इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हो, बट आपको HDFC बैंक का बिजनेस जानना जरूरी है, उनके फाइनेंशियल्स का एनालिसिस करना जरूरी है कि बैंक आगे जाके ठीक करेगी नहीं करेगी. दैट इज समथिंग ओनली व्हिच एन एक्सपर्ट कैन डिसाइड, और फॉर पीपल हु हैव the requisite knowledge about how to analyze HDFC bank. So while it is very tempting, there are lots of challenges with direct investment. बाजार में तेजी मंदी तो चलती रहती है, because ultimately it's a cycle. आपके और मेरे जैसे लाखों पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं जिनका व्यू अलग होता है, राइट? आपको लगता होगा तेजी है, मुझे लगता होगा मंदी है. So ultimately market is constantly going to be a fight between bulls and bears, और इसी कारण मार्केट में वॉलेटिलिटी होगी. एंड ऑफ कोर्स लाइक यू सॉ इन 2020, यू कैन लूज मनी वेरी क्विकली. सो ऐसे में खड़े रहना बाजार में डटकर सारे इन्वेस्टर्स नहीं कर पाते. सो दैट इज वेयर you end up losing money in equity, and hence the experience is bad. And of course you require a lot of time, you require a lot of research, you require a lot of effort to ultimately make direct equity investments. So फिर सवाल ये आता है कि हम क्या करें, राइट? हमको फाइनेंशियल फ्रीडम भी अचीव करनी है, हमको अपने गोल्स भी अचीव करने हैं, शॉर्ट टर्म भी करना है, लॉन्ग टर्म भी करना है, तो हम क्या करें, राइट? दिस इज वेयर म्यूचुअल फंड्स कम इन, राइट? दैट इज व्हाई म्यूचुअल फंड्स आर देयर. So just a simple slide on how mutual funds work, right? Mutual funds are nothing but a pooled vehicle if you go by the definition. But अगर मैं साधारण भाषा में समझाऊं तो इसका मतलब ये होता है कि एक म्यूचुअल फंड हाउस होता है जो एक स्कीम रन कर रही है. एसेट क्लासेस में हम आगे की स्लाइड्स में आएंगे, बट सपोज फॉर एग्जांपल इट इज रनिंग एन इक्विटी फंड. What it will do is collect money from you, me, and the 10,000 other people who want to invest in, say, an equity product. Basis that there is a fund manager who has the requisite experience and the expertise that we saw in the previous slide. He will buy the securities, based on, creating wealth, making money for you, generate return, which is ultimately passed back to you. So, right. So if you come today, if the market does well, you have something like a NAV concept, which is basically the value of per unit of what you have invested. So ultimately that is what is passed on to, investors in the form of return. So simple, right? It's a mutual fund is nothing but a pooled vehicle which will help you invest your money basis the objective that you have. So अगर आपका इंटेंशन है कि मुझे फिक्स इनकम स्कीम में रहना है, डेट इंस्ट्रूमेंट में रहना है, तो आपके लिए एक अलग एसेट क्लास है, आपके लिए अलग स्कीम है. So I think it just is a common vehicle which will help you invest your money without you requiring the expert knowledge of the subject. Right? What is a type of mutual funds? Right? Like I spoke about, there are different mutual funds. There is a debt mutual fund which is typically going to invest in debt instruments. This can be your corporate investments, government investments, corporate bonds, money market investments, all those sorts of things. So typically this kind of funds are typically for investors who are looking for a steady income generation on a monthly basis, right? It is safe to say that this is for investors whose basic objective is trying to protect their capital first. They are not looking for any outsized returns, but the basic objective is to beat inflation and make, say, 200 basis points above inflation. So that is what debt mutual funds are. Then there is an equity mutual fund. Very simple to understand. It invests in securities which are traded on the stock exchange, right? It invests in stock market directly on your behalf. Those are equity funds. And a hybrid fund is basically a combination of equity and debt. हाइब्रिड फंड्स में भी तरह तरह के हाइब्रिड फंड्स होते हैं जिसमें proportion of fixed income and equity is very different depending on what the scheme offers. तो कोई schemes में debt 25% होगा, कोई schemes में debt 60% होगा, कोई schemes में debt 75% होगा. So basically based on your appetite or based on how much equity you want in your portfolio or how much debt you want in your portfolio, there are tailor-made schemes within the hybrid category also. Of course, SEBI has a complete definition and well-defined rules in order for the fund managers to follow and invest their money on behalf of the investors. So these are basic types of mutual funds, right? Equity, fixed income, and hybrid. Right. So the next slide is talking about investing in mutual funds. Right. So there are two ways to invest. दो तरह से आप पैसे इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हो म्यूचुअल फंड्स में. वन इज लमसम. लमसम मतलब आपके पास अगर आपके पास जेब में 100 रुपए है आज, तो या तो आप एक साथ 100 रुपए दे दो कोई भी स्कीम में, पसंदीदा स्कीम में आपके चॉइस की, या तो फिर आप SIP कर लो. SIP का मतलब ये होता है सिस्टमैटिक इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान. दैट इज द डेफिनेशन. बट इसका साधारण मतलब ये होता है कि आपके पास अगर 100 रुपए है तो आप 100 रुपए एक साथ ना दीजिए, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली अगर आप इक्विटी प्रोडक्ट चूज करते हो और बाजार का उतार चढ़ाव आपसे देखा नहीं जाता, तो इट इज मच बेटर टू गिव योर मनी वाया द SIP रूट, विच मीन्स दैट हर महीने और हर तारीख जो आप सिलेक्ट करते हो उस डेट पे आपका एक फिक्स्ड अमाउंट डेबिट किया जाएगा. So you can basically do 10 times 10 rupees, which will ultimately take you to 100 rupees, and you can be less worried about the fluctuations of the market. SIP in a concept is a big topic by itself. So hopefully if Harsh and team ever want to discuss SIP in length, we are more than happy to educate our investors and our audience here on SIP. So basically just the simple definition is that अगर आपको ज्यादा रिस्क पसंद नहीं है, अगर आप थोड़ा घबरा जाते हो मार्केट के उतार चढ़ाव से, बट आपको पार्टिसिपेट करना हो, देन सिप इज द वे टू गो फॉर यू. राइट. सिप कीजिए और मार्केट की वॉलेटिलिटी से बेफिक्र हो जाइए. राइट. सिमिलर, जस्ट द सेम एग्जांपल ऑफ जस्ट द सेम थिंग दैट आई स्पोक अबाउट. राइट. जैसे आप पहले के जमाने में बैंक्स में रिकरिंग डिपॉजिट करते थे. राइट. The concept is very similar. तो instead of the money going towards a recurring deposit, it will go in the scheme that you are investing in. It is ideal, for new investors जिन्होंने अभी तक बाजार देखा नहीं है, जिनको नया महसूस हो रहा है, they want to get comfortable. SIP is an ideal way because they will ultimately see the benefit of averaging. अगर बाजार गिर जाता है तो lower levels पे भी वो जाके खरीदते हैं, जिसके वजह से मेरा mark to market कम हो जाता है. So sorry to be a bit technical, but basically I average out my investments in order to invest in the market. So of course, like I said, this is a completely big topic by itself. One slide will not do justice, so I will just leave it at that. SIP के advantages अगर मैं just 1 minute में समझाना चाहूँ तो, right, mutual funds offer SIPs to as low as 500 rupees, right? So अगर आपको कोई स्कीम में invest करना है, आपके पास बड़े पैसे नहीं है, then SIP is the way to go for you, because many mutual funds or almost all of them today offer a SIP with 500 rupees, basically very light on the pocket. Anybody can do it, not necessary that you have to make 50,000 rupees a month in order to do an SIP. Even if you are making 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees, you can start off with 1,000, 2,000 rupees as a SIP in order to save money and also invest in the right asset class, right? इससे क्या होता है कि आप डिसिप्लिन्ड हो जाते हो. अगर आप एक SIP सिलेक्ट कर लेते हो तो irrespective of what is happening in the market, आपके अकाउंट से पैसे डेबिट हो जाते हैं, जिसके बेसिस पे आपको यूनिट्स अलॉट हो जाते हैं. तो इन दैट वे इट हेल्प्स यू गेट फाइनेंशियल डिसिप्लिन. आप मार्केट को टाइम करने की कोशिश नहीं करते हो. आप एक बार आपने SIP रजिस्टर कर दिया तो आप फिर बेफिक्र हो जाते हो. एवरी मंथ डेबिट होता जाएगा, एवरी मंथ एक आपका किटी बनता जाएगा, and as and when the market does well, you will see the benefit over a long period of time, right? Rupee cost averaging, right, what I spoke about in the previous slide, जो averaging की बात की मैंने. अगर सपोज आज आपने इन्वेस्ट करना शुरू किया और अगर सडनली फॉर सम रीजन बाजार 10% गिर जाता है, तो ऑफ कोर्स यू लॉस्ट 10% ऑफ योर मनी राइट अवे. बट द गुड पार्ट इज, अगर आप SIP करते हो तो सपोज अगर 100 का 90 रुपया हो गया तो 90 पे भी मैं जाके खरीदूंगा, तो इससे मेरा कॉस्ट 95 हो जाता है. सो विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इफ यू गो ओवर द लॉन्ग टर्म, राइट, बिकॉज कहाँ आपका कॉस्ट 100 रुपया और कहाँ 95. बट इफ यू डू अ SIP फॉर अ लॉन्गर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम व्हेन द मार्केट इज फॉलिंग, से इफ द मार्केट करेक्ट्स बाय 20%, सो अगर आप 80 रुपए पे भी खरीदते हो तो आपकी कॉस्टिंग काफी कम हो जाती है, जिससे आपको ओवर अ लॉन्ग टर्म फायदा होता है. सो दैट इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ रूपी कॉस्ट एवरेजिंग. व्हेन बेसिकली मार्केट्स फॉल, आपको ज्यादा यूनिट्स अलॉट हो जाते हैं, तो जब भी तेजी होगी या तो फिर जब भी मार्केट डज वेल, योर वैल्यू ऑफ द टोटल पोर्टफोलियो स्टार्ट्स बिकमिंग बेटर, राइट? And the last is the power of compounding. It's actually the 8th wonder of the world. Like सब ताजमहल की बात करते हैं, सब आईफिल टावर की बात करते हैं, बट फाइनेंशियल मार्केट में this is the most basic but very important concept, which is the power of compounding. Basically ब्याज के ऊपर ब्याज मिलना. Just I'm sure most of you would have heard the word of चक्रवर्ती ब्याज, basically compounding interest, right? अगर आपने कोई फिक्स डिपॉजिट की होती है 100 रुपए की, अगर आप उसकी वैल्यू 110 हो जाती है बट आप रिडीम नहीं करते हो, बेसिकली आप उसका ब्याज निकाल नहीं लेते हो, तो आपको जो नेक्स्ट इंटरेस्ट मिलता है वो 110 पे मिलता है, राइट? सो टेक्निकली अगर 10% आपका रिटर्न है तो आपको 1 रुपया ज्यादा मिलता है. तो दैट इज द पावर ऑफ कंपाउंडिंग. सैडली बहुत ज्यादा लोग इस पे फोकस नहीं करते, बिकॉज दे थिंक दैट इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल कॉन्सेप्ट विच डजंट बेयर फ्रूट. बट अगर आप 10 साल 15 साल 20 साल में कंपाउंडिंग का इफेक्ट देखोगे तो इट इज प्रिटी सिग्निफिकेंट. I think I have an example to show you also in the upcoming slides. So the next question is, when do you start a SIP? There is only one simple answer to this: the earlier the better. जितना लाइफ में सेविंग और इन्वेस्टिंग जल्द शुरू करोगे, इवन दो इट इज अ लेसर अमाउंट, बेनिफिट दिख जाएगा आपको, राइट? ये स्क्रीन पे एक एग्जांपल है जहां पे देयर इज वन अर्ली स्टार्टर. जो बंदा 30 साल की उम्र में SIP शुरू कर देता है 5,000 रुपए की महीने दर महीने, और 30 साल तक इन्वेस्ट करता है. और राइट हैंड साइड पे है जो लेत लतीफ भाई साहब है अपने, जो 40 साल की उम्र में शुरू करते हैं. ही डज एग्जैक्टली द सेम थिंग, 5,000 rupees a month, 60,000 at the age of 60 he also invests. But look at the difference in the kind of money they've made, right? जो भाई साहब अर्ली शुरू किया था उनकी वैल्यू 30 साल में 1.74 करोड़ हो गई, और जो राइट हैंड साइड पे थे जो लेट लतीफ थे उनकी वैल्यू सिर्फ 50 लाख रुपए हो गई. So there is a big difference because ultimately there is that time period of 10 years which is the compounding effect which the late mover is not going to get. So very important to keep in mind that आपको जल्द शुरू करना है और invested रहना है till the time you achieve a significant amount of time in the market. So just a show of how importance of starting SIP early, right? ये एक सिप कैलकुलेटर है. आई एम श्योर हर्ष और उनकी टीम आपको ये कस्टमाइज करके बता सकती है कि बेस्ड ऑन हाउ मच यू वांट टू इन्वेस्ट और हाउ मच मनी इज रिक्वायर्ड टू बिकम अ करोड़पति, कितने सालों में आप बन सकते हो बेस्ड ऑन द रिटर्न दैट यू गेट. इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अगेन compounding is that one magical formula which is often underrated. I will repeat it again and again. अगर आप कंपाउंडिंग का जादू समझ गए तो आई थिंक आपसे बड़ा गुणवान कोई नहीं होगा. आई थिंक यू विल बी ऑन योर वे टू अचीविंग फाइनेंशियल फ्रीडम. यू विल बी एबल टू अचीव योर फाइनेंशियल गोल्स इवन दे आर शॉर्ट टर्म और लॉन्ग टर्म इन नेचर, बट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कंपाउंडिंग. अगर मेरे को आपको ये टेबल समझाना हो, राइट, अगर आपको करोड़पति बनना हो, राइट, सो इट मीन्स सो से फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आप 12% रिटर्न एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हो और अगर आपको सपोज 20 साल में करोड़पति बनना हो तो आज की तारीख में आपको 10,870 रुपए लगेंगे ऑन अ मंथ बेसिस टू बिकम अ करोड़पति, राइट. सिमिलरली अगर आप 10% रिटर्न एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हो मार्केट में और अगर आपको 25 साल में करोड़पति बनना है तो आपको आज की तारीख में 8,044 रुपीज लगेंगे ऑन अ मंथली बेसिस. सो दैट इज बेसिकली योर सिप कैलकुलेटर, हाउ मच मनी यू नीड टुडे basis on the number of years that you're investing and the kind of returns that you're expecting. So a very important combination of time plus the return expectation will get you to your ultimate goal, right? This is the formula that I've been talking about, right? Compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it, right? I think this is a quote which is very very famous and this is the formula which you see on screen, राइट. अगर आप देखोगे तो उसका फॉर्मूला दिखाया गया है आपको. तो जो इन्वेस्टर्स फोकस करते हैं वो आर है. आर इज नथिंग बट द रेट ऑफ रिटर्न. बट जो इन्वेस्टर्स भूल जाते हैं वो टी है, विच इज द टाइम विच यू कीप योर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स इन द मार्केट. बहुत टाइम लोग 8% मिला, 10% मिला, 12% मिला, उस पर फोकस करते हैं, बट भूल जाते हैं कि वो 8, 10, 12 आपने कितने टाइम तक रखा है. जितना ज्यादा समय आप रखोगे उतनी ही ज्यादा वेल्थ आप बना पाओगे और उतने ही सक्सेसफुल आप हो पाओगे, राइट. So this is the last slide which I want to leave you with, right? I'm sure it's been I've just overshot my time, but just to give you a sample of where to invest a bounty, right? I'm sure it is bonus season everywhere, and obviously money can be in different forms. It can come via bonus, it can come via inheritance, it can come via something that you planned a few years ago, it has materialized. How do you plan to invest a lump sum bounty that you receive, right? बहुत टाइम लोग भूल जाते हैं कि एक इमरजेंसी कॉर्पस क्रिएट करना बहुत जरूरी है, राइट. तो से फॉर एग्जांपल टुडे यू एंड I'm assuming if your wife also works, you have a double income in the family which is drawing say an XYZ amount. Just simply multiply that with your 6 month of expenditure. So अगर आपका महीने का खर्चा 20,000 रुपया है तो straight away 1,20,000 एक keep aside as an emergency corporate, park it in a liquid fund or an overnight fund or a money market fund where there is basically no risk to investment and you can take the money out whenever you want, right? That is something which people plan to forget. Everybody thinks of investing but nobody plans to create an emergency corpus, right? अगर आपका कोई क्रेडिट कार्ड ड्यू है या तो फिर कोई पर्सनल लोन ड्यू है तो प्लीज कृपया उसे जाके भर दीजिए क्योंकि a debt free man is the greatest man in the world, राइट. सर पे कर्जा नहीं होता तो बहुत अच्छी बात होती है. You can live your life without any pressure. You don't have to worry about paying installments or paying any loans or credit card bills, right? You can of course reward yourself because ultimately मैं और आप पैसे इसलिए बनाते हैं ताकि हम मजे कर सके लाइफ में, be it in the form of having a vacation, a holiday, या तो buying yourself something, spending some money on shopping, right? It's not always about investment. Sometimes you have to enjoy life also, right? Or you can use that money to use for an STP. So STP is a concept, of course, we've not touched in this presentation, but what it means is that अगर आपके पास सपोज एक लाख रुपए का बोनस टाइप आ जाता है, तो आप वो पैसा जाके कोई लिक्विड फंड में डाल दीजिए, and you do a transfer, say, into an equity fund on a monthly basis. So that basically is kind of achieving your long term goal, that आप बैंक में पैसे नहीं पड़े हैं, it is put to the right use, and at the same time it is going towards achieving your financial goals. So that is it from my side, Harsh. I'm opening up the floor for Q&A if our audience has something to ask us.
Yeah, Nirbhay, this it was extremely insightful session from you. I think I'm sure our viewers love the presentation which you just covered. So we have some questions from our viewers, and I will take them one by one.
Yeah, sure.
So first question, yeah. So first question, the investor is at he's currently 45 years of age.
Yeah.
His goal is to lead a comfortable life post retirement. So he's
Yeah.
just trying to understand how much should he save, or what should be his corpus towards the retirement. So what is the target, amount that he should consider at the age of 60?
So I think it's I think not only
So
a question for the 45-year-old gentleman, but it is a question for everybody, right? What happens post retirement? And I think I touched upon it on a couple of slides in the presentation. So what is important to know is how much is your running expense today. I think that will determine how much money you need post retirement. So basically what you do is, say for example, your cost, I'll just give you an example in order to arrive at a formula for not only that particular gentleman, but for everybody. Say for example, you have your running expense as 20,000 rupees today in a month. Take the rate of inflation anywhere between 5 to 7%, because that is the rate of inflation which is prevalent in our country, and I think it will be the case over the next decade also. Given that he has another 15 years, he has to compound that inflation for 15 years. So say for example, if the inflation rate is 7%, all he needs to do is multiply the 20,000 into 1.07 raised to 15. That will tell him on a monthly basis what he needs at the age of 60. Basis that he has to decide how much money he needs, say for the next 20 years, 15 years, whatever is the assumption of the life, and then work backwards to achieving what is the investment value that he needs to do today in order to achieve that goal. And I'm sure you guys at Tata have a lot of calculators which are very ready reckoner kind of things for investors to tell them, like the SIP calculator, right? What is the money that he needs? So in this case, he has to first decide what is his running expenditure, basis which he can arrive at a targeted corpus for himself.
correct. So there is one viewer who is saying he's just got a job and he's trying to understand the markets. Is it the right time to invest through SIP?
Oh, very nice. Firstly, congratulations on the job. And I think it is, like they say, it's never the right time. Like, it's always the right time to invest. Specifically, I think for this viewer who is young, who is dynamic, he's only going to make more money in life, coming up. I think it's best for him to start a mutual fund. I would purely recommend an equity fund, because the time horizon that our fellow gentleman has here is pretty long, right? To stay invested in the Indian markets for 20-25 years, I think is a no-brainer choice for him. He should definitely start an SIP, even though it's a small amount. Even though he can do, say, something like anything between a 2 to 5,000 bucks, I think that will go a long way when he ultimately looks back after 20 years. So it is the best time to start. I think I was late by a few years. I started at 25. I would have loved to start at 22, 23, but nonetheless, I think earlier the better. I think one of the slides also showed us that earlier the better, and I think he will definitely experience the power of compounding to the fullest if he stays invested or she stays invested for the next 20-25 years.
Yes. So we have another question. The user wants to understand what are global funds and know what is the difference between an ETF and an index fund, and which one is the best.
Sure. So I'll break that question up into two parts. The first part is the global funds, of course, right? It's another form of diversification. It basically helps you invest in stocks which are not available in India. So again, an illustrative purpose example, just for the namesake, not a recommendation. But say if you wanted to take exposure to something like an Amazon or a Microsoft or an Apple, right? These stocks are not listed in India. So you cannot buy them via the domestic market. So the best way to buy them is through mutual funds, right? Because mutual funds offer, investment products which have a global strategy. So in a way, it helps you take exposure to foreign stocks also. But at the same time, very important to remember, it adds a degree of diversification to your portfolio, right? Because ultimately, if you invest in India, after a point, the universe is fairly limited. So it makes sense to have exposure to something like a global fund, where you not only take advantage of these developed economies, because ultimately all these global economies that the mutual funds are investing in are far ahead of us in terms of their line of thought, the business models that they have. So something like an Amazon, right? Of course we have Flipkart now, but Amazon has been existing for 25 years. So basically the advantage of identifying new businesses is, while of course India is doing fairly well and no discounting that, but to have them as a listed idea is possible via investing in global funds. So that is the answer on global. So of course it's a very important diversification tool also. Second, the difference between an ETF and an index fund. Both of them of course are offered by mutual fund houses, also by mutual fund houses only. The basic difference is that ETFs are traded on the exchange. So say for example, if you want to trade Axis Nifty ETF, you can simply go to your broking account and your demat account and buy it via the platform that you have. And I'm sure you guys will also be able to help out the investor there. That is what an ETF is. An index fund is just like how a normal mutual fund is. The only difference is that it replicates the index, right? So if I say the Nifty index, when Axis is offering a Nifty index fund, it will basically have no active fund management. It will directly replicate the index, and it will give investors the benefit of the NAV that is trading. The only difference is that in an ETF you can get the live price, right? You can trade it on the exchange during the day, so you can buy it at the price which you see on screen. In the index fund, you will get end of day NAV like any other fund that the mutual fund is coming out with. So that's the key difference which investors have to keep in mind via while investing in an ETF and an index fund. So
I'll just cross question that. So
yeah,
we
please.
have our Indian markets fairly growing, or it's more emerging. So
Yeah.
do we have enough liquidity with the ETFs? So from an investor perspective, should I buy ETF or be comfortable with by going after index fund?
That's actually a brilliant question, because I think most of the times when you try and buy an ETF, right, barring the Nifty or the banking index, the spread is too high. I completely get where the question is coming from, because by the time you buy it, that difference in NAV is as if gone away, because you don't have enough buyers and sellers. But the biggest development is that SEBI has been focusing a lot on passive investments, right? So there are active market makers, there are participants who are actually there to provide liquidity. So if you just pull out the list of passive funds, you have so many customized passive funds today that you'll be actually surprised with the kind of liquidity which is available in these schemes. So even in a mid cap index or a mid cap ETF, right, the kind of volumes that are happening on the exchange is just phenomenal. So that actually pulls the spread down, and it actually benefits the investors. So yes, while liquidity does remain a concern, but with SEBI's effort and the fact that passive investing is picking up in India big time, with APs coming into the picture, I think liquidity is slowly and steadily as a problem getting solved. So I think investors will find it easier to buy it directly from the exchange also. But anyways, if you want to do an SIP in an index fund, no better way to come directly to the fund house. So
okay. So we have an investor who is saying, I have started an SIP 4 years back to buy a car. My goal is achieved. Again, congratulations to him. Should I stop the SIP now?
if it was for that specific goal, I'll be honest about it, yes. But of course, there are bigger things that you can achieve in life, and of course, life doesn't stop at buying a car. But yes, if it was meant for that specific goal, my answer would be a straightforward yes. But if he's going to stop that SIP, I would recommend starting another SIP if he doesn't have one, to have a much larger goal. So basically, if he's already seen the success, if he's tasted the fact that he's actually made money, I think that should install confidence in our investor to go back and invest for the long term as well. So
Correct. So we have another question. So I have recently started investing through SIP, and with the current market correction, it is down by 15%. So should I continue, because I have lost some money? I had started SIP to create some savings over the period of 10 years.
yeah, so I think, like I mentioned, right, when the value of investment starts eroding and it is in the red, it's kind of a heartache. It's heartburn, because nobody likes to see money getting lost. But what I heard from you is two good things. One is that he's in the bottom of the cycle, which means that he's only going to buy more units from here. So the answer to whether he should stop an SIP is definitely no. In fact, he should look at topping up his investment, because this is an ideal time to add on, right? Because you've already seen the correction which is started in October. And of course, I'm not saying that there is a bottom in place, but starting now, if you start investing now, you're going to take the advantage of prices being lower, stock prices are depressed. No better time to add value to your portfolio. And if the goal is 10 years, it's absolutely a no brainer. You should just continue, in fact, top up your investments, because the outlook for India as an economy is only going to get better. And like we've seen in the past, these are all cycles, right? You might be depressed for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or max 2 years, but post that, once the cycle comes back, I think the kind of money that Indian markets have made historically also is kind of phenomenal. And the people who benefited the most are the ones who stayed invested. It's in such a time, it's actually good to not look at your portfolio, because it kind of gives you a kind of a negative vibe. But I would honestly recommend first to top up investments and just let SIP magic work and the compounding magic work for you over 10 years. So
Great. So we have one investor who is asking, is the SIP an alternative to doing recurring deposit in banks? So should he consider both, or he can skip recurring deposits and continue with his SIP?
in fact, the logic is the same, right? In a RD, also in a bank, how you do a monthly installment and SIP is the same. So the concept has originated from there. The only difference is the asset class. If you want to invest in, say, an investment instrument which is yielding about 5-6%, then of course it's better to move to mutual funds which are debt in nature, because you have a lot of options which across the spectrum give you returns. Something like a liquid, which is the safest form of investment, gives you returns in line with what the RBI's policy rate is. Then there are, of course, credit risk funds also, which of course I'll not get into the specifics, but are higher yielding in nature because of the nature of the portfolio. So I would say that if he wants to start an SIP in a like-to-like asset class, I would recommend he come to a debt mutual fund rather than continuing in a RD, because ultimately banks are always going to be lower than what a corporate deposit offers, or an NBFC offers. So the chance to make that extra 100-150 basis points is going to be there with a mutual fund, which the bank will not offer. So yes, if a like-to-like comparison is needed, then of course I will request him to switch to a debt mutual fund, even if it is via an SIP. So
Yeah. So we have one last question to take for today. The customer has been doing investments in PPF over the last few years, and his friend is now recommending to start with an ELSS. So a large part of his saving is currently into PPF, which he is not able to withdraw.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so should he consider ELSS first?
I think again, excellent question, and I think most of the mutual funds have this fantastic comparison of ELSS versus PPF versus 5-year bank FDs, and I think I'm sure you at Tata have seen a lot of that. I think the biggest advantage is liquidity, right? Like you said, in a PPF, I cannot withdraw my money before 15 years. 15 years is honestly a long time to stay invested. While it's a good thing, but ultimately it's a debt investment, right? So you're going to get a fixed kind of a return on your product, on your investment also, unlike equity where the return proportion as the time goes by is going to get only better. So number one, yes, if liquidity is a concern, then ELSS is the best when it comes to liquidity because it has a 3-year lock-in compared to a 5-year bank FD, which is 5 years, and a PPF, which is 15 years. So in terms of liquidity, yes. In terms of return generating potential also, yes. While 3 years, sometimes if you're caught wrong in the cycle, sometimes you might not, end up with the most desired result. But of course, the good part is if you're doing an ELSS investment, please treat it as an equity investment where your minimum time horizon is 5 years. The only comfort is that once you do an ELSS after 3 years, you are free to take the money. So in case you get the cycle right, if you're doing it via an SIP, if you get the benefit, you get the money after 3 years, and you can obviously withdraw it. And there is the LTCG benefit also which comes along with that. So yes, I would definitely recommend an ELSS investment compared to something like a PPF or even a 5-year bank FD. So
Correct. All right. So with this we come towards the end of our session today. Thanks, Nirbhay, for sharing your thoughts. Really appreciate you giving us time to do this session. And also, I would like to thank the whole team of Axis Mutual Fund to help us organize this session. Uh, Further, I would thank all our viewers who have joined us today. To take out some time and understand about mutual funds and how it will help them achieve their financial goals. Lastly, I would just reiterate our audience to check out our Moneyfy app. The link is given in the description below. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Nirbhay.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks.